Warning, the views and opinions expressed in this presentation are those of the producer and those appearing in the show and do not necessarily represent the views of DerryCam, the town of Derry, or any of its staff or affiliates. Welcome back to America's Ass, and yeah, we're still kind of, going through the motions with the recovery from the last local election here. A lot of towns had elections, and yeah, we have someone from Hudson today, someone from Moms for Liberty, someone who's chair of the Hudson GOP. Please welcome Kim Allan. Thank you for being here. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Kimberly Allan, Moms for Liberty now for about a year, Hudson chair for 3 years. We're just moving and grooving over there in Hudson, trying to do our best, trying to keep local Republicans in their seats, and that's what we've been doing.
And you're also Assistant Secretary of the New Hampshire GOP.
I am. I was voted into that seat in January.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess we'll talk about Hudson for a second. You actually got elected to a spot in Hudson.
I did. I was elected to the supervisor of the checklist, uncontested. Really, nobody wants the job. It's time intensive around election season, and there's a lot that goes into it that if you're not paying attention can be confusing, and you could mess up, and a lot of people shy away from that position because they're so worried about that.
What does a supervisor of the checklist do?
So it's our job to keep track of the voter rolls, to make sure that those who haven't voted in a long time, to get them removed from the voter rolls because they may no longer be with us, or they may have moved. It's our job during the elections to get new voters checked in if there's the first time voting in Hudson, address changes, name changes, and any questions that they may have, they can come to us at the elections.
Yep, I think it's not a very well-known position in the state, and I think pretty much every town has it. We have it. We have 3.
Yes, yeah.
So, yeah, and did you have many controversies with that new law that I know a lot of people are kind of iffy about?
We didn't have any issues on election day. The biggest controversy we had was that we had a woman who had come to the election meetings and learned all about the new election law, what you need to bring, what is expected of you, even gave her my copy of all the paperwork I had. And 2 days before the election, she goes on Facebook and tells everybody that they need to have all these forms of ID or they cannot vote. So then you jump into panic mode and damage control, telling everybody if you're already a registered voter, you don't have to worry about that. Just bring your license, your ID, your photo ID, your passport. If you're a new register, those are the things that you need to bring if you've never registered before. You have to bring a marriage certificate, your license, your passport, something with your mailing address on it. So that caused quite a stir in Hudson when everybody was being told that they all had to bring these forms of ID.
Yeah, a few people were upset about it here. I don't think there was actually any issues on election day here, but...
Yeah, we had no issues on election day. Everybody that showed up was very amicable. They were great about it. We had a couple people come in and said, "Oh, shoot, I'll be right back." Ran home, got what they needed. No problem.
Yeah. So we had our just quick update from the Derry. We had our first school board election yesterday. First school board meeting, since the election. We elected our new officers. Michael Thiel is now chair of the school board. Jen Thoreau is now vice chair, and Jenna Paradise is secretary. I was told Brenda Willis was supposed to be vice chair, but there was some nonsense because they don't want someone that actually speaks the truth in a place of leadership. So it's kind of bad. And Chairman Thiel also did not open up for nominations really when it was time to vote for that. Whoever was nominated first, they went to a vote right away. They did not keep that open. So I kind of had a big problem with that. I'm really hoping it's not a sign of what's to come with him. I'm really hoping we don't have, a my way or the highway type of chair on the school board. So that'll be fun to watch. And it's definitely going to be interesting. And I think ever since COVID, really, people have been paying more attention to school boards. And that's kind of where Moms for Liberty really got their footing. So what is Moms for Liberty?
So Moms for Liberty is an organization that was actually started in Florida by two women, Tina and Tiffany. During COVID, the biggest issue was they were masking our children. And I know there were some groups here in New Hampshire who were not happy about that. I was one of those moms. Why are we putting our kids in masks all day long? That they're already struggling to sit through a class of 20, 25 minutes, and now we're going to put cloth over their face. Genius idea. So these women started with that, and it kind of moved on from that during COVID to schools opening back up and these moms seeing what was going on within our school districts, what our kids are being taught, what we're not being told about what they're being taught, the curriculums, who they're using for the curriculums, bringing in different organizations for DEI, having assemblies on it, and it really opened these women's eyes to what was going on in the schools. In 2021, Moms for Liberty was brought here to New Hampshire, and it was just basically a group of homeschool moms to start with. Rachel Goldsmith started it. She's from Manchester, and she started it up here in New Hampshire so that our local moms here would have somewhere to go to start the fight here in our own towns. So basically what we've been doing now is, COVID's over, and we're looking at the lasting effects of COVID, our proficiency scores. Our children are failing. Why are our children failing? Why can't they read? Why can't they do math? Why can't they look you in the eye? Why can't they speak properly? These are all things from masking or improper teaching that nobody wants to address.
Yeah, I first got involved during COVID. I still remember going to the school board meeting where they decided to have that mask mandate. I remember it was a 6-1 vote. Lynn Perkins, who is now zoning board chair, he switched over to zoning after he lost re-election. He was the one no vote on the mask mandate. I remember the other 6 said yes, despite all the yelling and the screaming. That was really influential to me, that meeting. Yeah. And I kept going, and I remember February of 2022 was when we got rid of our mandate here in Derry. Yeah. I spoke at that meeting. I witnessed a teacher call another student who had a disability a terrorist for having their mask down.
Wow.
And I went to the meeting. I never said names, but I went to the meeting and I reported that. Magically, 4 days later, we no longer had a mask mandate. So that was awfully convenient. And I consider that, obviously, I wasn't the sole person to get rid of that, but I like to think that I really had a bit of an impact on that.
Of course.
COVID allowed me, despite how horrible COVID was, it allowed me to get involved in this. Yeah. It was really the driving force for me to start. And then I realized it's not always going to be this exciting. It's mostly going to be boring.
Yeah.
So I decided to learn all the boring stuff.
Yeah.
And I kept going, and now I'm here.
Yeah, I think COVID was an eye-opener for a lot of people. I know for myself, when I saw the effects of my son having to wear a mask and fighting against it, we had a school board also that voted to keep the masks on our kids right up until the meeting right before we were electing our new school board members. And I'll never forget, because I was running for school board. I only lost by less than 100 votes. I was running for school board, and this man that I had emailed tirelessly, along with the whole board, but him in particularly, because he would always answer. And I finally said to him, when is the madness going to stop? We have to end this. So I went to the school board meeting, and I told them, we don't co-parent with the government, we don't co-parent with the school district, and I'm certainly not going to co-parent with people on the school board. I was very upset. Lots of parents showed up to that meeting, and in that meeting, wouldn't you know, that man stood up and said, I want to motion that effective immediately starting tomorrow morning that our kids no longer have to wear masks to school.
And it passed.
Of course it passed, because they wanted to be reelected to the board.
Yeah, now that you mention it, they did get rid of it in February here too.
Mm-hmm.
And our elections are also in March.
Yep.
Yeah, so was there any other major thing that caused Moms for Liberty to get going? What else do you do now, besides now that COVID's over, really?
Now that COVID is over, the biggest fight that I will say that we've been fighting right now, besides education, because that's a big deal. Department of Education has been demolished. That's amazing. There's still other big things going on. We have inside of our schools teachers and books talking about, multiple genders, and it's okay to be whatever gender you want to be. It's okay to be trans. Let us help you transition, and let us help you be the person that you think that you are. And we're not going to tell your parents. We're not going to tell your parents about it. It's not their business. It's your business. I have a big problem with that. Moms for Liberty had a big problem with that because they're not our children. They're my children. It's not the school's children. They're our children. And that's an issue. And you just have these school districts that are pushing it. And here in New Hampshire, which I think it's going to go to the House and it's going to pass our parental bill of rights. We're also getting rid of minors being able to have top surgery here in New Hampshire, and that is huge puberty blockers. I'm guessing that's going to pass also, and that's going to be huge.
I'd like to use this effort as an opportunity to give a shout out to one of our former guests on the show, Jonah Wheeler.
Yes.
Yeah,
Jonah. I didn't know, I knew of Jonah. I didn't know a lot about him until I was sitting there one day and Sarah DeVito said, "You got to see what just happened." And there was a video clip of this man standing up in the House chambers saying that he supports our girls. And the Democrats' heads exploded. He's been getting death threats. He's been talked down to, degraded. He going in and out of the House. He's had Republicans walk him in and out. He's had Republicans defend him because he had the thought of, he's a free thinker, for one. They don't like that.
He is.
He is.
I definitely don't agree with him on everything. He's a progressive Democrat,
Yep.
but he thinks for himself, and I think that's an increasingly rare thing in politics.
It is.
And it's not just Democrats, it's us too.
Of course.
I may not be a fan of how these two representatives voted, but personally I have a big problem with stripping representatives of their committee assignments for how they voted in committee.
Yes.
Like I said, I don't necessarily agree with Dave Nagel and Joe Barton's votes,
Yeah.
but I don't think you should be persecuted for one vote.
No.
My opinion.
You shouldn't, because it's your job when you are voted in as a state representative. You are there to speak on not only behalf of yourself, but on behalf of the people. And I think people lose track of that. The Democrats have a great way of rallying together, and you're going to believe and do what we do, and if you don't, you're out.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we've seen it on the Republican side too, but I think it's louder on the Democrat side.
I think the Republican Party is more diverse than the Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of factions, and we have difficulty uniting, for better or worse.
Yep.
And
That's true.
I think 2024, we finally saw some glimpse of uniting.
Yeah.
But when you go down to like state level, like if you look at the state house, there's so many different groups.
Yes.
So many.
Yeah, there really is.
Yeah. So what's some big work that Moms for Liberty has done in New Hampshire? Specific cases.
We had a case of Alvern High School in my town of Hudson was having an assembly, and it was an assembly on diversity, for a lack of a better term. It was an assembly that wasn't an opt-out. Every high schooler was expected to attend it. They let the kids and the staff know ahead of time. I only knew because luckily in my district and the surrounding school districts, I have teachers who come to me because they know that I'm not going to say anything. That I'll go after the problem, but I'll never reveal who they are, and that's so important. And so I had an educator reach out to me and say, "Hey, this is what's going on. I don't think it's right." And I said, "Well, let me look into it." Google's a great resource. I typed in the presenter's name, and I'm sorry, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but I typed in the presenter's name, and it was actually a Black Lives Matter leader here in New Hampshire who was going to do this assembly at the high school. So got on the horn, let everybody in town know, Facebook pages, the legislators, our senator, Ms. Carson, school board members, Frank Edelblut, let everybody know. Frank called the school district and said, shut it down. And the superintendent said, we didn't know. I had no idea. So that tells me there's a level of incompetence because you didn't do your research before you invited this person to come speak to the children. And it was a paid event, so when you ask the trustee of the trusts, you know, you were shelling out this money, didn't you ask what it's for? The answer was, well, we never ask, we just write the checks for the assemblies. So that's an issue too. The masks, obviously we fought for those for a long, hard time. I was not part of Moms for Liberty back then, but there were women in my town who actively participated in that. We also, let me think, there's just been little things just pop up here and there. We've been working on the pride flags in the classrooms and in the schools. I believe it's H.O. Smith in Hudson has a giant pride flag hanging in the stairwell of one of their schools, and I think it's a school for first graders. It may host other children, but I distinctly remember saying there's only first graders in that school, which may be true. But there seems like there's something new every day that we're having to look into, having to do our research. I had an educator outside of Hudson for the Litchfield School District reach out to me, and they said, we have a big issue. And I was like, okay, let me have it. They said, our superintendent wants to do a meeting with the kids. I'm like, okay, that's normal. They do that from time to time. They'll have little pep rallies or fun things, give things out to the kids. And she said, no, it's nothing like that. And I said, well, what is it? And she said, well, our superintendent wants to have 2 meetings. I said, okay. She said, well, to talk about race and diversity. And I said, all right. Well, he wants to have one meeting with the white children and another meeting with the black children. And I said, he's aware that that's against the law, correct? Like, we can't be doing that you can't separate the children that way.
He held segregated meetings.
He did not. Again, called our commissioner of education, hey, Frank, we got a problem. He said, you've got to be kidding me. I said, I wish I was making it up. And the reply I got back from the individual who reported it to me was, boy, our superintendent is really mad right now because somebody told on him. And I said, oh, that's a shame. Got shut down, never happened. These are people who shouldn't have a position of power in our towns. You know, no. You're not doing your due diligence to your community. I
will say, losing Frank Edelblue is huge. I was not very happy.
I was not a fan of that. When I first heard that information through my husband, and he said, hey, did you know Frank was leaving? And I said, don't kid with me. I said, today's not the day. We were getting ready to go to the State House to do some testimonies. I was already riled up, and I was like, nope, I don't want to hear it. And he's like, no, it's right here. And my heart dropped because Frank has been such a huge asset to the state of New Hampshire. Love him or hate him, he's done some great things, and he has always put our children at the forefront. And I feel, and I also feel that anytime that you go to him with a problem, he gets right on it.
He's always been accessible to me.
Yes.
And personally, I love Linda McMahon, but I wish Trump chose him as Secretary of Education.
Wouldn't that have been amazing? I personally was rooting for Tiffany Justice, who helped start Moms for Liberty, but she's working with the Heritage Foundation now with Erica Donalds, so that's the perfect spot for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that would have been amazing, yeah.
Yeah, I was really disappointed that he was leaving. I had heard that there was some feuding with him and Governor Ayotte, so I'm only going to assume that they had some disagreements of some kind and he didn't want to stay on. Yep. But it'll be interesting to see who takes over. Would you have any front runners at the top of your mind to take over?
I honestly don't know. Frank, I've never gotten that far in my thought process because in my brain Frank was there forever. I never thought that Kelly would get in and Frank would go. I've not heard why he's leaving. I'm not nosy. I'm not going to ask him why he's leaving. But I really hope that they take the time to think about what New Hampshire needs, what the children need, and that's what they go with.
What do you see as one of the biggest challenges for schools in New Hampshire as a whole over the next few years?
I think one of the biggest challenges is going to be that right now we have some angry teachers in our school districts. They're watching what's going on as a country, and I'm sure you and I think it's great, you know, where like, yes, he's in office, he's doing his job, he's doing what we wanted him to do. I think that we have teachers who are going to push back. I hope we have some teachers who leave and they can bring in some fresh minds who are more open to teaching our children and not with the mindset that they're going to come in and take over our children.
Yeah. it'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah.
What impact do you think the Department of Education getting shut down will have on New Hampshire? What do you think is going to change for us?
I think with the power coming back to the states, that this is going to be an opportunity for New Hampshire to really pull it together. This is going to be an opportunity for us to put things in place that really benefit our children, especially when we look at these proficiency scores and the fact that our children have been failed. You know, we shouldn't have fourth graders who can't read. We shouldn't have high schoolers that can't read. And it's, you know, everybody jokes on the internet, there'll be a mad Democratic teacher that'll put up a post, and they'll be like, well, that's great, but you do realize that the students that you taught won't be able to read this. Like, they joke about it. I find it heartbreaking. My son has friends who can't read, and it breaks my heart that there was nothing put in place, because this didn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
You know, they were pushed aside, and with New Hampshire having elementary through middle school, they just push you through. You pass. It doesn't matter what your grades are. You're going. But when you hit high school, your grades matter. It's pass or fail.
At one of our recent school board meetings, we had all 6 of our school principals come and give a presentation on the state test scores.
Okay.
And they were not good. They were at, depending on grade level and on the topic. I'm stumbling a lot today.
That's
Somewhere between 30 to 55% on all of them. That's not good at all.
And I have an unpopular opinion about state testing. I don't do it. I opt my child out. What is one more test to put our kids in a panic that they don't get a grade for?
Yeah.
I think it's trash.
I agree they're not important, but the test scores that we have now are still, that number alone isn't good.
You know.
And I had to sit there as student member and not really be able to say much about it.
Yeah.
I had to sit there as the principals all touted how good they thought the scores were. And I had to listen to the school board members all say, great job,
Yeah.
which was tough.
That's hard to take in when you're looking at those scores and you're like, this is not so great. Great compared to what would have been my question.
Yeah.
What were last year's scores? How did we improve?
Yeah, we had little to no improvement. And one of our state representatives, who's been on the show a few times, David Love, has called many of them out for that, and I'm glad he has.
Yeah.
But it's a problem statewide, really.
It is.
Really is. And you mentioned Moms for Liberty testified on quite a few things. What are some of the things you've testified on?
I've gone in twice now. I testified on the Parental Bill of Rights and how I thought it was important that the parents were included in everything. That there's no part of our child's school day that we should be excluded from. If I call and say, what did my son eat for lunch? I want you to tell me what my son ate for lunch. Kidding. But, you know, they want to keep things from us. If my son's having a hard time, you don't get just to decide that he's going to have counseling. You can tell me he's having a hard time, then I can talk to my son and we can find the best route for us and what will work best for us. It's the sneaky underhandedness of these school districts where they think that, oh, we know what's best for your children. We're just going to do whatever we want. We're going to make sure they're taken care of. But that's not okay. Those are our children. And I will, to the day I die, those are our children, not your children. I also went and spoke about the puberty blockers and how minors are receiving puberty blockers and the toll that it takes on them. You can't get a tattoo. You can't get a drink. You can't rent a car. You can't rent a hotel room. Any of those until you're an adult. Why are we letting children take puberty blockers? Why are we letting parents consent for children to take puberty blockers? We need to let kids be kids. Everybody's in such a rush to push them into these genders or these roles that these children think that they are. My son thought he was Batman for 2 years. Cool, he wore a costume, you know? That's what children do. You're not Batman. He knows he's not Batman. He's 14 now. He's grown out of it. You have to let them be kids. You have to give them the time to process what they're doing. You can't pump their body full of hormones and puberty blockers and not expect a negative outcome. let them be kids, let them get to the adult stage of life, and let them make that decision on their own. Because I have met some really amazing people who have detransitioned, and they wish that there was somebody there who would have fought for them and said, don't do this, you're going to regret it, wait till you're an adult. And their testimonies they're heartbreaking.
I think it goes to show that, and I've said this almost every episode, but I'll say it again because it's very important. It's probably one of the most important lessons I can teach you. Pay attention to the local level the most. Mm-hmm. The school boards, the superintendents, the town councils or select boards or city councils, whatever you have. That's where most of the important decisions, like some of these, where school districts can coax children into doing stuff, that's where all that's made. And Derry specifically, start paying attention, because as I mentioned, we have a new school board who, for better or worse, is going to run things differently. Starting on July 1st, we're getting our new superintendent, so we need to see what he's going to bring to the table. It's going to be interesting, and we all need to pay attention. So, we are just about out of time. Do you have any closing statement?
I think the biggest closing statement right now is we just all had our local elections. You have to get out and vote for those. When you don't come out and vote, that's when your towns suffer. That's when your children suffer. That's when your taxes suffer. You have to be present. You can't just be the keyboard warrior on Facebook and on Twitter saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. You have to get out there and be part of the movement. You have to exercise your right to vote. And you have to get your friends to come out and do it with you. It's important.
It's important, and it's neglected. Derry had 1,975 voters in a town of, I believe, 22,000 registered voters. That is absolutely abysmal.
Yeah, I want to say we had just over 4,000 voters with 18,000 registered voters in Hudson.
It's quite ridiculous.
Yep.
And we need people to step up and run. Yep. I am tired of seeing the same people on both sides. I'm criticizing my own side too here, and they know who they are. The same people keep making posts bashing town council and school board for everything, yet they don't step up and they don't attend meetings. Yeah. Start showing up or run. Then I think you get the right to do that.
Yes.
We'll just have to see how everything goes. I'm Anthony Henry. This has been America's Ass. Thank you for watching.